5. And we are now live with our 37th installment of Nansen Office Hours. Alex, how are you doing this week?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing well. It's been an eventful couple weeks in the markets. Why I love to see the banner is back. And to all of you out there, we have turned off Discord. We apologize for for past beeps. That is the soundtrack of our lives. So at this point, it's blended into our consciousness. But if you are new here to Nansen Office Hours, this is a 1-hour conversation between the token god and myself, where we explore some Nansen dashboards, talk about the latest shenanigans that are happening in the market, and try and find some interesting things on chain for you guys. Disclaimers up front. Anything we might ape into on the show is not financial advice, not investment advice. We are fully aware that anything we go into might go to zero. Who knows where the markets will take us. So be careful out there. And then I guess right up front, we can make our head of marketing, Ingrid, happy by saying, smash that like button if you like this and subscribe. If you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to leave it in the chat and we will try and get to it throughout the next hour, whether it's projects that you're interested in, NFT projects or DeFi projects, new tokens you're interested in. We are happy to pull up that on-chain data and try and find some interesting tidbits. So where do you want to start today, Alex?
I think we can start with everyone's favorite dashboard these days, which is NFT Paradise. By the way, we hit 2,000 YouTube subscribers. Did you mention that?
Hell yeah. No, we didn't.
Hell yeah. So welcome to all the new subscribers.
Yeah, it must be all the shilling we do at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, NFT Paradise. So for those of you who have not seen this before, NFT Paradise shows you what the market looks like on NFT collections in the last 24 hours. So you have a ton of columns here. By default, it's sorted by the volume, the traded volume in ETH. So that, very quickly surfaces the NFT collections that are the hottest right now. But we also have, other columns like market cap, max price, min price, and we have a few more columns that are going to be released pretty soon. And one thing that's new is that now most wide tables in Nansen they're actually scrollable. We used to hide columns when they couldn't fit in your screen, but now you can scroll left and right, which gives you a much better overview of all the metrics that you care about. So you can see the contract date of when a smart contract was launched. You can sort on that and see everything in the last, say, 24 hours. Or the other way around, the oldest ones like CryptoPunks and CryptoKitties, the two historical NFT OG collections. But yeah, you can sort by any column here. And maybe we can start at the top here. So what's happening with art blocks? Why is that so busy these days?
Yeah, we've talked about art blocks for a while now, at least a month, and it's been really crazy watching this boom in art blocks. I'll just repeat. I've probably said this before, but I'll just kind of give it a rough overview of why I think people are excited by it. One of the things about art blocks is they really prioritize having all of the art be on chain. So art blocks is focused on generative art, which is where you write a script and you inject randomness into this script, and it creates either a visual or audio piece of art. And the idea is, because it's code, you can have that code be on chain. And so because Ethereum can run code, now you can actually recreate all of this art on chain. So all of the assets or all of the necessary ingredients to recreate this art exists on chain. So in terms of like crypto native art or art that is like native to blockchains, the generative art is like the most interesting. Beyond that, a lot of this art is quite interesting and unique. The most popular collection, Fidenzas, that has had just absurd sales in the past week. sales up to 1,000 ETH. There's one Fidenza called the Tulip, which sold for quite a bit. These names are unofficial. It's not like they're on chain, but people see them and they're like, wow, this kind of looks like a tulip, for example. And there's a gentleman named Bonafide Han who has really been one of the main curators, in fact, the main curator of Fidenzas, and helped bring a lot of attention to it. He also brokers a lot of these large scale art block deals. Anyways, long story short, when people start seeing these mega transactions like 1,000 ETH for a Fidenza, they start realizing, okay, actually, this is elevating the value of the entire art blocks collection. There's something going on here. Yep. So a lot of growth has happened in the art blocks curated section. So art blocks is split into 3 categories. There's art blocks curated, art blocks playground, and art blocks factory. Art blocks curated has the most attention, and people try and create full sets of art blocks. So an example of this is an example of how you could get exposure to this in smaller form would be on fractional.art. Mm-hmm. They've got a collection called ABC123. That's worth checking out. Now, I would caution you, if you are looking to buy fractional art, the liquidity, frankly, isn't there yet. So this isn't like a liquid market where you can buy ABC123 and then exit right away at a profit. Basically, like if you're buying some of these, you're draining the liquidity pool, and so there's going to be a ton of slippage when you try and exit if there isn't like Ethereum on the other side of the trade. But ABC123 is a curated full set, and theoretically, people who are trying to curate these full sets will buy at least one of every new curated piece, so they can keep this curated set. So a lot of growth has happened in the earlier seasons of art blocks, like season 1, season 2. These seasons are kind of like, I don't know if there's like any like official separation. It's kind of just like they did one chunk of them and then another chunk. But like from the original first season, there's things like construction token, Genesis, Squiggles, things like that. And those have been really popular. I mean, we've seen multiple Squiggle floor sweeps. I'll pause there. I've kind of been monologuing.
It's fascinating. I think maybe to tie this back to what we can see on chain, for example, if you drill down on NFT God mode, so you click on one of these collections. The weird thing about art blocks is that they have several different smart contracts. That's something we're working on making a bit more intuitive, but you can at least look at those individual smart contracts, and you could look at things like who are the top accumulators in the last 24 hours or in the last 7 days. This is 24 hours, and here's one that has received 166 NFTs, and their first one was 13 hours ago. So maybe you want to look into that, and you could, if you wanted to, you could drill down further and look at that specific address. You can also look, conversely. Oh, okay, maybe they just moved to a new wallet, minus 166, and then it went into 166. Okay, so that answers that probably. If you went in and looked at the transactions, it looks like this address just received those NFTs from des.eth. So, that's something we could figure out right away very quickly by just looking at the data. You can also look at, if you sort by first in, you can see who are the latest newcomers into the collection. So the people who bought this NFT for the very first time. And you can click through and see if you spot interesting ones. Here's an NFT collector that got 11, and they just started acquiring them 6 hours ago. So that can be interesting to understand a bit, like who are the new people coming in. nftokyo.eth has 52, and they just started buying them 10 hours ago. Interesting. And so on and so forth. So that's kind of how you can get the insights here. And you can look at, more aggregate metrics, such as how many unique addresses actually hold these pieces. And this is, because this collection has a lot of pieces, you can also have then, of course, many more addresses, right? So Yeah, but you can see very clearly that, you know, this growth on the community side here, because you have more people actually picking these up. Yeah, so I think that's just kind of how NFT God mode works, which, you know, you can get to by drilling down. Maybe we can quickly look at some of the other ones, because there are a few, you know, familiar names here. I think one that I looked at earlier, which was pretty interesting, because you can see the traction picking up, is this SupDucks collection, which has been around for a while, and you know, the volume peaked, you know, a while back, and then has kind of been going down, but the volume has really started picking up again, and you can see, you know, the increase in average price has been going up. Looks like the floor price dropped a little bit, but that could be an outlier as well. But you can see more clearly here on the individual transactions, you see what's happening, and you see some really big buys here, and generally it appears like the, you know, average is going up. This is the little outlier that caused the low min price up here, which you can see 0.13 ETH is the min price. That's the floor price for that time period, and it's caused by this little outlier. But actually, if you look at all of them, you see that the price has been going up, generally speaking.
In that chart, you can actually click in, which is quite interesting. So you can see what that one is. This
one, yeah. So you can click on it, and you can see that particular item. We should probably have the, I think I've said this before, we should have the actual JPEG here, but we do have a link to OpenSea. So you can also just bring that up. And this is our guy, SupDuck 9664.
Can you scroll down?
On this page, or on
OpenSea? No. Like, yeah, can you open up OpenSea again? I kind of want to see why it sold for so low.
1339. Should have been 1337 at the very least, right? Camden's fat finger.
Yeah, maybe this is a fat finger bot. So there's some bots that try and snipe these kinds of things.
So maybe you can explain what that means.
I don't want to alpha leak it too hard. But I mean, sometimes when people are listing their collection or their pieces, they will fat finger, meaning they misclick or they enter in the wrong price. So this person might have been trying to sell it for 1.3 or something like that. I'm not sure what the floor price is, but they act like 1.339 or something like that, or 13.39 or something like that, and they accidentally put the decimal in the wrong place. Yeah, floor price is around that.
Seems like so. Probably that's what happened.
So a concept I'll just quickly highlight here is, and I don't know if this is like, what, can you reopen that page?
Oh, sorry. This one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Just for kind of like terminology for people to think about these things as they're analyzing these markets. So when you look at the price difference between that 9325, this Patagonia wearing Patagonia jacket wearing guy and the bubblegum guy, there's a 0.1 ETH difference there. And so that difference is called the people who I trade NFTs with, we call that a floor gap. And the idea is when there's a big floor gap, you can theoretically buy the lowest one and relist just below floor. So you could buy this one at 1.19 and then list just below 1.3 at like 1.29 and make up that ARB. Now, this assumes that there's a liquid market. So, you know, you only want to be kind of taking these risks when there's high volume on a collection. Otherwise, you're kind of potentially left holding the bag. That's one thing. The second thing is you should be mindful of fees because OpenSea takes 2.5%, and some of these collections, like art blocks, takes another additional 7.5%, of which 2.5% goes to art blocks, 5% goes to the creator. But in total, there's 10% there. So you need to make sure if you are trying to kind of capture that ARB, you're getting at least 10%.
Exactly. So this is totally analogous to what happens on a crypto exchange, right? Where people have order books and a market maker will look for opportunities like this, where they will just snipe something because someone has to sell it fast for whatever reason, and they'll pick it up and just basically relist it higher up in the order book. So it's like a completely analogous concept, really, from crypto trading as well.
Someone in the chat asks, is a notable buyer?
What is a notable buyer? Yeah, that is a very good question. And so notable buyers are effectively, you can go to docs.nansen.ai to look at the details, but it would effectively be wallets that fall under the like legendary NFT collector, and I think also epic NFT collector segment. And I think also smart money addresses are included in that. But you can check docs. It should be listed out in docs.nansen.ai, I believe. And so you go to wallet labels, emojis, what do they mean? And then you can see the overview here. So do we actually have notable buyer? That's we don't have that. So I'm lying. So we should probably add that to this page. But I don't know if you have Discord open. We can ask Paul what's the definition of notable buyer, and if you can add it to the docs. So that's a good question. But effectively, it's like, I think it's legendary NFT collector, epic NFT collector, or smart money. And that means that they are very actively trading NFTs effectively.
Yeah. Before we leave SupDucks, do you mind opening those top sales? I'm kind of curious what those were at the
These ones up here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this clerk click, I'm just gonna open Napoleon on OpenSea, 0xBB1E, and then these skulls. And so if we just open OpenSea right away, this guy looks rare, wouldn't you say? Let's have a look at the other one.
Sorry, I was just pinging Paul. Okay, both crown ones.
Both crown ones, yeah.
Yeah,
and these guys like usually
yeah, there's usually a premium on crowns, but can you open properties and just see the rarity on some of those, like the eyeballs? Oh, so
fangs and 0.20, and also twack. Yeah, very rare indeed. Let's look at the other ones. Pretty fun to look at these things. I gotta say, I think the SupDuck art is pretty cool. It's pretty funky. Feels unique.
Yeah.
Also, I should put a disclaimer that I own 2 ducks or something like that. Two or maybe 3 ducks. I actually don't know.
This is kind of an NSFW one.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even realize this was a trade. It's kind of funny.
We can't have children watching this show anyway, so let's see. There's another one. So these dickheads are that popular? Interesting. Oh well. Yeah, this one we already clicked. And these are the old guys. Yeah. So you can also see the history, right, of them trading down here. So went from 0.1 to 6 to 25 ETH. Pretty good. I wish I probably 9man wishes he didn't sell it to plum.eth. You want to look at something other than NFTs, or are we still on the NFT track? Do we have more questions?
Yeah, I was just looking through the questions. I think we can quickly just make some notes on some of the other ones. So, I mean, there have been
like the 0N1 Force. That seems pretty hot.
Yeah, that one was quite popular and like 10x'd in the span of a couple of days. Basically, like the launch was kind of crazy. There were some people who, it was very difficult to get into the launch. And then immediately after launch, people were buying a lot at like 0.5 ETH. Yeah, there's been some really big buys, but this one has gotten a lot of like support from like new crypto people, I would say, like people who haven't really been in the NFT space yet, and they look pretty cool. I mean, they look cool as avatars. But like one thing to note, just in terms of where we are in the cycle, first of all, who knows how long this cycle will be? Like, this is kind of an unexplored, uncharted territory in terms of like a digital asset like this. But I would just caution people to like just be careful if they're overextending themselves, and know that at this point in the NFT market, on some of these like profile picture collections, like if you're getting in at like a 5 to 10 ETH floor, you are no longer really early. The real like if you are looking for kind of exponential gains, the part of the price curve to trade is like the beginning, not the 5 to 15 ETH growth, not the whatever 20 to 40. I mean, certainly those are great, but that's a much harder gap to cross, or a much harder chasm to cross than like 0.1 ETH to 0.5 ETH or something like that. I'm not also not like recommending aping into these profile picture projects at 0.1 ETH. I'm just saying, like, exercise caution at this stage.
Yeah, I think that's healthy advice. Of course, people have to make up their own mind, but they shouldn't get carried away by the euphoria alone. At the same time, when punks were like, what, 20 ETH, and you were trying to get me to buy one, and I didn't, you know, that was early.
Yeah. I think we've got messages back and forth where I'm like, tri-weekly reminder to buy a punk.
Exactly. And I didn't do it, and I'm very sad. There's some other stuff here. I mean, of course, I feel like I have to mention the penguins, which are still on the first page. And you actually bought one
last week. Yeah,
last week you aped into it.
Yesterday, I was walking around New York, and there was a guy who had a penguin painted on a subway map, or like a map of New York.
Oh no, really?
Like he was in the middle of Soho. Like, no. He was an artist. He was an artist, and and like his art is on these subway maps. In fact, you know, there's many artists who do this. These like kind of street artists. This is not a new medium or anything like that. Like you'll see like 5 different guys in any given day with art on subway maps. But this guy had been commissioned to make the Pudgy Penguin, and I went up and I chatted with him. I was like, "Are you into NFTs?" And he's like, "No, someone commissioned someone commissioned this. What are NFTs?" And then I showed him the collection online, and like we talked about like the floor price, and he's like, "Oh my God, I got to be selling this for $100." I was like, "Yeah, probably sell."
That's very cool.
So I linked his. Well, I thought about it, but it wasn't mine. It would have been marketing. But I linked his Instagram. I tweeted about it and linked his Instagram, and he's open to commissions. So
that's amazing. Can we give him a shout out here? Do you remember his username?
I can find it real quick.
Maybe some other Pengus will commission some artwork from this guy.
Yeah, if anyone's coming to New York for like Masari Mainnet conference or NFT NYC, they can ape in. His handle is
oh, sorry, go ahead.
At UniFelix84, spelled YUNIFELIX 84 on Instagram, and his DMs are open.
Very cool. I think the Pengu community has proven that they are capable of getting Pengus out in the real world. So, you know, I think we should just double down on that strategy as Pengus. Because the one metric that matters, how many addresses hold Pengus? 4,397, this chart says. And one day, probably not too long, we will hit 4,444, which is when basically half of all the tokens that are owned by basically those people. That's a really bad way of explaining it. There are 8,888 tokens in the collection, and you will have 4,444 unique addresses that own Pengus. So, yeah.
So it's heavily distributed. One thing that I think would be an interesting extension of the new number of wallets column that we have on NFT Paradise, if you tap back there,
this one over here
would be like collection size divided by number of wallets or something like that.
It's coming. It's literally on the way. It's like probably coming maybe today or tomorrow. I don't want to say something wrong, but it's coming very soon.
Yeah,
it's in the works.
Cool.
And so it's kind of like a distribution metric, right? So if it's like 100% distributed, that means everyone has one NFT of that collection. And then on the flip side, if it's very, very low, that means like one person owns all of the items.
All right, let's quickly run through some of these questions in the chat, and then let's probably transition to DeFi, because we're getting a lot of questions about AVAX August.
Okay.
All right. So one guy asks, I am crypto asks, guys, what are the best resources to get on NFT drops early? Simply following smart money wallets, etc.
I mean, you can answer first if you want.
Yeah, I think there's a few answers to that. One is Discord is the quickest or like the fastest source of information. However, there's a lot of noise on Discord to parse through. So it's the fastest, but also the most challenging to parse through and figure out what's going on. But that is the best source of alpha. The next would be Twitter, where it's a bit more refined, but it's at a slower, like things get posted a bit slower. So you might not find out about things for like an hour or two, and like after they're relevant. There's still opportunities there. And then sometimes there's lists, like upcoming NFT drop lists. But again, that's also kind of difficult to parse through. Like if you're just looking at a list of these things and going to the website and saying like, do people care about this? That's kind of tricky. So at that point, if you're like seeing a list, you find it on a website somewhere. You click through, you check the website. You can also check on Twitter, maybe check the community, and that would probably be one way. In terms of
go ahead.
In terms of using our dashboards, you do actually quite frequently see people aping in. Like it pops up really quickly on the dashboards, either in gas consumer accounts or in hot contracts when one of these projects are dropping. And sometimes it's not immediately labeled because these have literally just dropped and our system hasn't had time to label them yet. But if you click through and then open them up on Etherscan, you can see like the contract name, for example, sometimes, and then backtrack from there. Usually, like what tips you off is when there's a huge gas spike, and that's when you start searching.
Exactly. So you can actually see the gas spike in Gas Tracker, which we have redesigned slightly so you can see the accounts more easily at the top, because they used to be at the bottom, which was not very useful. So now you can see here, I've often seen, there's a huge spike and you can just see right away, oh, it's this new NFT token. And so you can just click through on it and then you know that it exists and you can Google your way to find the website in many cases. I think I mentioned before, I discovered both hash masks and Bored Apes through hot contracts. That's like literally how I learned about those projects for the first time, and just saw that there was like tons of ether being thrown into these projects, and I aped in. And if I had held on to my Bored Apes, they would be worth, I think at this point, probably like $4 or $5 million. And instead I sold them way too early because I have, F in the chat, please. Because I had paper hands, apparently. I thought it was pretty good. Like the returns were pretty good, but I missed out on like $4 million probably. So that's
I remember the day after that happened because I missed the drop, and we were chatting, and this was like right when I was kind of getting into NFTs and I had no idea how to price them, how to sell them. And we talked about it. I was like, wait, so like, how are you pricing these things? How are you figuring out where to sell them? And I was like, oh my God, this guy's got some genius strategies.
This guy's genius. And he sold his bags like way too early. Yeah.
It turns out early in the cycle, having diamond handitis is a good affliction to have.
It is.
But,
and it's funny.
Paper handitis.
Some of the people we know aped in at the same time and bought the same amount of apes, but they held on to them, and then now they have like an insane amount of value stored in those NFTs. So good for them.
All right, let's dive over to DeFi and Avalanche. We might come back to NFTs later, though. So let's see how things go.
Yeah. So we don't support Avalanche yet. We might one day. I had a call with them yesterday. Actually, it was quite productive. But we do, have other chains coming. In fact, BSC, I think it's safe to say, will be released tomorrow. Hopefully I won't get slaughtered by the head of product.
Alpha leak.
But BSC will be released tomorrow, and that's going to be cool. And then the team is working on a more scalable way of adding EVM-based chains. And Avalanche is a little bit more complicated. It has like 3 different chains, but one of them, the C chain, is EVM-based. And so we might add support for that at some point. But you can already see some traction by just looking at the bridge. So this is showing the bridge that exists on Ethereum layer 1, and you can see which tokens have been sent to that. For example, DAI. If you click through on DAI, it will open up the wallet profiler for token for that bridge, and you can see it's been there wasn't much happening for a long time, but then as these liquidity mining incentives were rolled out, it's really exploded in the last week, from say 8 million to 206 million. In just DAI. And if you wanted to, you could figure out who created the largest transactions. In fact, there's another Ava Labs bridge which I want to look at there. I haven't seen that before. But you can also click on this incoming addresses, because you see more than 1,000 unique addresses have deposited DAI into this. If you click on that, it's going to show the top depositors. So again, you see the 206 million, and then now it's going to show on a per address basis who are the top depositors that have been putting DAI into the Avalanche bridge. While that's loading, it's a little bit slow. I'm going to look at this other bridge, which I didn't know of, but it looks like Alameda is using that. And
one thing real quick to note is, if you've seen on Twitter a bunch of people memeing Bridge, like for example, I think Sue tweeted about how Bridge is the best 4-player game or something like that, and other people are just
I didn't actually get that. Yeah, that's
tweeting Bridge. Yeah,
that's
kind of being memed.
I didn't get that before now. I saw he tweeted, I didn't think about it. I know he plays poker and chess and stuff. I was just like, okay, he's into Bridge now. Didn't get it. Okay. Here you see the top depositors. There's one address that aped 74 million DAI 4 days ago in over 3 transactions into this. And so also the biggest Wi-Fi farmer, almost 3 mil DAI aped into this. Interesting. Feels like the biggest Wi-Fi farmer should have a smart money label.
Agreed.
That's strange. You can also look at the same thing. Now I'm just zooming up, like going back to the wallet profiler, and we could look at something like who's putting wrapped Bitcoin in here. And you see, of course, now we're talking about Bitcoin, almost 1,000 Bitcoins have been deposited. Let's see, actually, this chart has not been updated in a long time. Yeah, so it's actually way more. Now it updated. It had a cached version there that loaded. So 25th of August, that's today, almost 4,000 wrapped Bitcoin. Alameda is here. Also so here you see Alameda, 480 wrapped Bitcoin. Interesting. Our friend NFT Maxi.eth aping some Bitcoin over to Avalanche, sorry. Degenerate ape operation.eth, and so on and so forth. So you can understand like who is actually engaging with the Avalanche ecosystem by looking at this bridge, which maybe we can drop a link to. But yeah, we can try to do that separately. So that's one way to look at what's the activity from Ethereum into Avalanche.
This really feels like one of those suddenly then all at once type situations where I feel like people on Twitter were fairly bearish about Avalanche for a while, and then all of a sudden the narrative just flipped real quick. I think one of the big catalysts for the flip was the Aave moving onto Avalanche.
Yeah,
and Curve, yeah. And when you look at like Polygon, for example, when Polygon really got a lot of traction, it was when Aave moved over there, and it brought a bunch of capital. It's kind of just like a fresh version of Aave, and Aave is kind of like Aave and Curve are kind of like these blue chip mining locations. So basically you're getting like theoretically very safe farms and like highly audited, really strong teams on a new chain. So, you know, there's outsized gains on these very safe mining operations.
Yeah. So I think maybe when we talk about EVM chains, maybe that sounds a little bit technical, but that stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. And so the reason that matters is you can effectively deploy the same code on an EVM chain, you know, in most cases. So it's easy for Aave and Curve to go ahead and deploy exactly the same application, the same set of smart contracts on Avalanche, which of course makes it easier for people or for developers to bootstrap their own projects on these different EVM chains like Avalanche, like Polygon, BSC, and so on. And so there's an interesting strategic question, you know, is it's obviously good in the short term. Is it good in the long term? For example, Solana, which is different, right? It's based on, you have to write smart contracts in Rust. So the argument there is that they will attract less of the copy-paste projects, the sort of low-quality copy-paste projects, which we know sometimes get deployed on various different chains. And they will attract more of the sort of, you know, high-quality developers who can actually write their own code and want to make new DeFi applications and so on and so forth. Of course, another downside, you know, to that approach is that, as Daniel just pointed out, you don't get the Lindy effect of having seen those applications run for years in some cases. So, you know, if you've seen Aave work without getting hacked, or there's no vulnerability on Ethereum L1, and they just port over the exact same code, it seems likely that, you know, unless there's something weird with the underlying base protocol, that the risk of vulnerabilities is also quite low. But if you're spinning up something completely new with a totally new code base on Solana, there might be more of a risk that there's a vulnerability in it. So I think there's like pros and cons with these two models, but I do see the argument from the Solana camp that they will attract more sort of quality developers who don't just copy paste other projects.
So speaking of projects porting over, we quickly mentioned that we're exploring, you know, how to get onto EVM compatible chains faster. Do you mind just giving like a behind the scenes of like what the process looks like for us? Like what are the steps involved in us becoming compatible with BSC or Avalanche, just so people kind of get an understanding of what's going on in the back end?
Yeah, so at a high level, the main thing you have to do is you want to be able to pull out data from these public blockchains, and you want to reshape it into a way that is more suitable for analytics. And so what we do is we basically have to either spin up our own nodes. So let's say a BSC node, an archive node, or we have to find a third-party provider like QuickNode, where we can hit their endpoint and just, you know, grab data from the node that they host. And then we have to write the code that sort of transforms that data into this, you know, more suitable for analytics data formats. And also that means loading them into different, you know, databases, right? Like you have something in a node, an Ethereum node, for example, that's not built to do fast queries on, like fast queries over long, like history, right? When you run queries on Nansen, very often you're scanning like years of history, right? You're scanning like tons of data. And so we use something called BigQuery, which is basically a columnar oriented database product from Google Cloud. And that allows us to scan a lot of data very fast. So we're basically porting this data from the public blockchains, translating it, and then loading it into a different database technology. Now, in addition, you know, it's not enough to just do that, because these labels have to be there as well, right? So we have to set up the processes and the algorithms that tag up addresses as well. And so, you know, you want to be able to see with more context than just this dash, you know, this is what it would look like if you didn't have the labels. You know, what are these different entities? And so we have a whole team dedicated to what we call attribution, where they try to figure out what are these different addresses and how can we label them in a descriptive way. So that also needs to be plugged into a new chain, right? But of course, there are some there's an economy of scale when it comes to working with EVM chains, and that's why we're focusing on those first. But I do expect us to move on to non-EVM chains eventually as well.
Cool. I don't know if you have this stat off the top of your head, but on average, like how much data are we munching through in a given day? Is it on the order of terabytes?
Well, it depends, right? One is how much new data are you ingesting? And then there's like how much data are we scanning through queries and stuff like that. And like definitely terabytes of scanning. Yeah, I mean, more than that, probably like petabytes or something. But I actually don't know. So I don't want to give an answer because I don't know the exact answer.
Fair enough.
But something like Solana, just ingesting Solana would be like 100 gigabytes per day, just reading it in, right? So that that's like 36 terabytes per year, right? And that's now. I guess it will be even more.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, let's keep the train moving here, and maybe we can hop into hot contracts or something like that. Or where do you want to take the exploration?
We also have we have a couple of notes here from our guys, right? So there are a few things that popped up on the radar of our internal analysts. I think there's a few things we can talk about. Frax Finance was mentioned here, Yield Guild Games, and then also Lido Finance. So, any of those we want to have a look at?
Yeah, we can start at Lido.
Alrighty. So maybe we can start because we have our own Lido project dashboard. And so this shows how much Ether has been deposited into Lido, which is a decentralized staking protocol for Ethereum 2. And it's actually pretty close to hitting 1 mil ETH, which is about, what is that, $3.2 billion US locked up in Lido. That's pretty impressive. I am a Lido DAO member, full disclosure, which I've mentioned many times before. And you can also see it in Nansen because my name is on the wallet. But this dashboard, you can see, the ETH deposited, which has actually accelerated lately. And you can also see the number of unique depositors. You can see how the staked Ether price, or STETH price, has been keeping up with Ether. You want that to be as close to 1 as possible, right? Like you want it to, because it's basically soft pegged to Ether. It's the representation of ownership of the Ether that is sitting in Lido. So the fact that this is close to 1 is good because you want to have that liquidity so you can actually exit if you do want to. That's kind of one of the key value propositions of Lido. You can also see the largest staking transactions. And so 3 Arrows still has the record with 50,000 Ether deposited in one transaction, which was done 95 days ago. But they've done, actually multiple deposits. Gnosis also did a really big deposit of Ether 128 days ago. And yeah, you can see other ones as well. And you can even see who is voting on stuff. And boom, there you have me. Look at that. I've been voting on 12 different votes. But
you're
yeah,
pretty active.
Guys. Yeah, I used to be on the first page, but I think I've been slacking off a bit on the voting. So maybe I should get back to that. You can also see how everyone voted. So looks like KR1 voted against something, but then they voted for either something else. Yeah, something else. You can see the vote ID here, 84 and 85. And you can see Defiance voting as well. Most people voting for. Here's one voting against. Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. So this is all transparent. This is governance in practice for a project that holds more than $3 billion worth of assets.
What would you say is the relevance of Lido for people who don't necessarily follow it or aren't fully up to date?
Let's zoom out and look at the wider context of ETH2 deposits. So the way you get ETH from Ethereum 1 over to Ethereum 2 is by depositing it into a contract. And so this ETH2 deposit contract shows Ether, how much Ether has been deposited, and the breakdown of this. And so it's actually crossed 7 million Ether. That's, I think roughly around 6% of all the Ether in existence. And Lido is at the top by far now, actually. So like there's no other addresses even close to having as much Ether deposited into that contract than Lido. So it's literally, the biggest single address, but it's also the single biggest entity, at least that we are able to track, because down here to the left, you see aggregated on entities. So Kraken, they have multiple addresses, right? They have this 632,000, but they also have this one at 204. So if you aggregate it up, Lido is actually the biggest on its own as well as an entity. Of course, with the caveat that there is like 50% that's unknown, and definitely there are some big players in there like Coinbase, which we don't have tagging for yet on ETH2 staking. But no doubt Lido Finance is by far one of the top contributors of Ether into this contract.
And then beyond that, what is the relevance of ETH2 if you're interested in getting into that, like looking at the super big picture?
Yeah, actually, when people ask me about this, the best resource is literally ethereum.org. So I would actually encourage people to check out the resources here, because it's pretty good in explaining, like, well, obviously, like, what is Ethereum, but also things like staking, how does that work, and Ethereum 2. And so there's kind of really nice information here about how that works, and I would recommend people to check that out. I think it's maybe a little bit underutilized because it's a really good resource. But, high level, there are, of course, many issues with Ethereum 1. It's kind of like it's almost like an MVP, maybe the world's most successful MVP. And Ethereum 2, one of the notable things is that it moves from proof of work mining to proof of staking. So that's, of course, going to drastically reduce the environmental impact of that mining has, and replace it with staking. That's a major change. The throughput will also be higher. And it's just like a better version of Ethereum in many ways. And so it's intended to solve, many of the issues that you now see with Ethereum, both like the environmental impact, but also things like scaling and throughput. So, I think I would encourage people to just read about it here, because there's a lot to cover. But that's like the high level.
And just a couple more questions. Why might people stake to begin with? Not looking at Lido, but like, why might someone stake in the ETH2 contract? What's the benefit?
The selfish reason is that you get yields. And so I don't know what Lido, would give you right now, but because the returns will sort of change over time. But so it's saying 4.5% APR on your Ether. If you put, one, so you would expect, if that stays constant, if you put, 100 Ether into this, then you get 4.5 Ether in returns over a year if it stays constant. It is expected to go down as more people throw funds in, but that's kind of the short answer. And then the longer, or not the longer answer, but another answer is that people want to move their Ether over to Ethereum 2, because eventually when the merge happens, when Ethereum 1 sort of connects with Ethereum 2, you actually not immediately, but not that long after that, you will be able to withdraw Ether. So then your Ether will be living on Ethereum 2 instead of Ethereum 1, and you will have accrued yields on it. And it's actually not that easy to get high yields on Ethereum. So if you look at something like Compound, right? What's the APR or APY on Compound? It's 0.14%. So when you see something like Lido, you're like, okay, this is obviously a lot more, and it's paid natively in Ethereum, right? So you're long Ethereum and you get interests on your Ether in Ethereum or in Ether, right?
Cool. Okay. So on most of these staking platforms, I think the value, or like not just Lido, there's several of these, and I also have no exposure to Lido, so certainly
you should be talking about it like as an unbiased entity.
Yeah, but the value of staking on one of these staking platforms is that you can do it in smaller size. So if you're running your own ETH2 node, you need minimum 32 ETH. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the one. That's absolutely right. That's you need minimum 32 ETH, and you need to run a validator, right? Actually, my validator went down yesterday, and so it's pretty annoying. It doesn't happen very often, but it's like you have to deal with the overhead of that. You have to have like a computer that's like always on, and you need to have some degree of monitoring on it so you know that it goes down. So there's a bit of overhead costs there as well. And if you only have one Ether, first of all, you can't do it. You need to have minimum 32. And second of all, you would have to deal with the overhead costs, so it might not be worth it. So why not pool together the resources, which is what Lido does, and other decentralized staking pools as well.
The other thing is when you do stake on one of these staking platforms, you get, so on some of them, for example, you stake your ETH and you get ST-ETH back. Theoretically, you can sell that or stake it somewhere else, or do something else with it. And like one of the things you could do with a staked version of Ethereum, regardless which one you get, is pool that with Ethereum on a DEX. So on top of the yield you're getting from the staking platform, you can also get trading fees. And theoretically, because these things are pegged, like a staked version of ETH is pegged to the native ETH price, there shouldn't be that much impermanent loss or price divergence from these two assets. And so you're just collecting, straight trading fees, which is wonderful. So on top of the yield from the platform, you can get even more.
Excellent point. And that's why they call it liquid staking. So, or liquidity for staked assets here, because unlike your node, your ETH is going to be locked up. And as Daniel just explained, in this case, it actually is liquid in the form of the token that you get back, which you can put into Curve and other areas or other platforms to get yields, additional yields.
So I guess why this is relevant is, as people are wondering if we're about to hit a double bubble, people are uncertain if, what assets they should be sitting in, if they should be sitting in stables, if they should be sitting in Ethereum. Now people are thinking, should they be sitting in Avalanche? If you are sitting on Ethereum to kind of get some exposure, if we do double bubble, and you want to kind of monetize the ETH that you're sitting on, if you want to squeeze a bit more juice out of it, and you're going to be having ETH exposure for the coming X months or weeks, year, I don't know, who knows how long these things last. This would be a way of just getting a bit more juice from that.
Yes, indeed. So that's Lido. We also mentioned Yield Guild Games and Frax Finance. Should we have a look at Yield Guild Games?
Let's do it.
So I'm going to go to Diligence and Token God Mode. I can also just click it up here because it's one of the most popular dashboards. Do we have it here? Yes, we do. Boom. Show token summary. And we will see some stuff. Looks like, first of all, huge influx on Huobi. Huh. Curious. Maybe they moved from another wallet or something. But yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, has it been listed yet? That's usually like the precursor to a listing.
Is this like the mega alpha leak? No. Well, it's already been pumping. But let's have a look. Yield Guild Games, markets. Yeah, it's Huobi Global.
Okay, cool.
Well, maybe it just got listed for all I know. I'm not sure, actually. Actually, let's have a look. So we'll list on, yeah, literally August 24th.
There you go.
Wow. We didn't prepare that. On-chain data. Boom, there it is. Okay, well, it makes sense. It should be picked up when that happens. Sometimes it happens even before they announce it. And there are some guys in our community who have been pretty good at spotting that in our Discord. So you should join our Discord at nansen.ai/Discord. Okay, what do we see? I go to notable wallets. I look at balance changes. I can sort by change. Huobi, that we just noted, is the biggest one. A lot of tokens have floated in there. There's also this one, which is probably a Gnosis safe. I mean, we can click it to have a look. Wintermute Trading, which is a market maker, has been receiving. So maybe they are market making for Guild Games. That's their client, or maybe they're market making on their own, or for an exchange. Who knows? But you can also see here some large transactions. Oh, there you go. Wintermute appears to have been among the main liquidity providers to Huobi. So they're basically market making on Huobi. Makes sense. So you can also see them holding a fair chunk of tokens here, but a lot of the tokens are held here, right? In this one, which is the Gnosis safe. So they probably just minted lots of tokens, and then they're held in this multi-sig. There's also the treasury. Oh, you see Block Tower Capital.
Block Tower is stacked on YGG. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, let's have a look at that.
Bullish. They are bullish.
Yeah. Oh, they actually. So they received some, and then it looks like they took some off the table, though, right? Or are they providing liquidity? We can have a look here.
No, I think they were selling. There was a period of time where they were, like, right after the MISO. It was a MISO sale, right? It was 12 mil on MISO that got insta sniped.
Yeah, and so they sold over a period of 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, someone has to provide the liquidity, right? Some way or another.
Yeah. I think that is a fair way of looking at it. You know, in the early stages of a market, like when there is actually no liquidity, it isn't always a terrible thing if someone is selling into the buy pressure. It looks like they sold 100K out of their 4 mil allocation, or I don't even know, what exactly happened there. But if they aren't selling, then the price is just going to get absurd, and people who are eager to buy are going to get burned because they're, the price goes from whatever $5 to 50 all of a sudden because there's no liquidity and there's huge slippage, and those people at the top will get burnt. So
exactly, yeah. And obviously you could also see that it wasn't a massive part of their stack, right?
Yeah.
This exchange listing flipper, that's pretty curious. And they actually started loading up like 29th of July, like a month ago. And they must have done pretty well. Started buying here, right? 400,000, and that's 500,000 now, 5x. Good wallet to follow, maybe.
An alpha leak here is for finding other like exchange listing flippers, is using the, what's it called, token. Let me remember what this dashboard is called. Token movements. Let me just double check. The one where you can set like a time and a token, like a time frame and a token.
Let's have a look. This one, token movements. This one here.
Let's see. Yes. And so, for example, like in the days leading up to the Huobi listing, like let's say the 20th to the 23rd.
Yeah. Okay. I think it was actually 20. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. To 23rd.
Yeah. When did they officially announce? They announced yesterday. Yeah. So I mean, it was like a pretty like low key thing, and you can see who traded or accumulated there.
Yeah. I think someone was saying that this is really slow. Was that you actually saying that this dashboard is really slow? Some of them need to be optimized a bit.
Yeah, I think all of them could use some optimization.
Agree. It's getting better, but yeah, it
is getting better. It's getting a lot better, and the caching was a big game changer.
Yeah, agree. You have something like that, right? So if you look at who's been stacking up, well, Wintermute, Smart Money, the deployer itself. Oh, Bitscale, interesting. Yeah. We don't see this one, the guy we just looked at, though, because they were actually accumulating even earlier. So you could put this like, let's go even further back, right? Like almost not a full month, but like 3 weeks or something, and maybe we'd see something different. But you can play around with the parameters. I'd probably want to put a smart money alert, smart alert on this address, right? It's like, hey, maybe at the very least for YGG, because maybe they know stuff that the rest of the market doesn't know.
Yeah.
So you could do that by just grabbing the address and clicking smart alerts, adding trigger, address, and then I only want to do this for YGG. So I'm going to call this exchange flipper YGG. And then could have a threshold, or I just want to know, whenever they do something. I don't think I have to choose token transfer because I put the token, but could do that to be safe. And then save it after I put in my ID here for Telegram, and then boom, now I get alerts every time this smart money exchange flipper does something with YGG.
Sorry to this exchange flipper if a bunch of people start following your wallet.
Yeah, but it's a public blockchain.
Yeah, there is some game theory there as well. I mean, one thing to think about is like if a bunch of people are following your wallet, how does that change the way you're trading and getting into opportunities?
True. I don't know what's going on with this setting. We'll just pause it. Might have died or something in the background.
One other thing to look at quickly before we start wrapping up here on the note of YGG is if you go to NFT Paradise again.
NFT Paradise.
I saw this earlier. If you sort by number of wallets.
Boom.
And then their Yield Guild badge.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, so that's 9,950. Almost 10,000 people have that. It's one of the most held NFTs, which is, I think, pretty cool. I mean, one person can claim one badge. I'm not even sure where to claim them anymore. I don't remember what the website is, but I'm sure someone can find it. But it's kind of just like signaling that you're interested in Yield Guild. And so as you're looking at different, and disclaimer, I have no exposure to Yield Guild, but this is like quite cool that 9,950 people were interested enough in Yield Guild to claim one of these. Maybe some people have multiple wallets that they claimed on, but yeah.
Yeah, agree. Very good. Is that a good time to wrap up? We didn't cover Frax Finance, but if you want to do that yourself, you just go to Diligence, Token God Mode, Frax. No, there's actually Frax, and then there's FXS as well. So, you can do this yourself in the platform and see what interesting stuff has been going on with these projects. So yeah, we can leave that as an exercise for the viewer.
Cool. All right. Anything else to add before we wrap up here?
Hope you liked the session. Smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, click the little bell. Like, what else can you do on YouTube?
I don't know.
Share it with your friends.
Share with your friends. Pin it. No, I don't think that's a thing on YouTube. Actually, one shout out, one big shout out is to the Twitter account Playturn, who came out of a hero emerged from the dark and started taking notes on these sessions. So definitely go check that out. We have I don't know who they are. Do you?
I don't. But the Twitter username is Playturn, as an intern, but instead of in, it's play. They definitely deserve
Playtern.
Yes. And that's great. There's also another really good thread that I wanted to highlight that someone wrote up. It was amazing. It was written by Adiel Yakov, and there is Yakov with 2 A's, but we retweeted it from our account, and
can you spell the whole thing?
Yeah, so Adiel Yaakov, and they wrote like maybe the longest thread I've seen on Nansen. It's pretty insane, but it's really, really good. So shout out to them. They got 211 likes on it so far. They had like 30 followers when before they posted it, and now they have like close to 200, and it's probably gonna grow very fast because that level of content you want to follow. So yeah, it was really good. Maybe you should give a shout out to Mev Collector as well. mevcollector.eth.
And the Schwal while we're at it.
And the Schwal as well. There's a lot of really good content creators out there who use Nansen, and it's not the easiest product to use, right? That's why we do office hours as well, to explain like how you can get maximum value out of it. But these guys do an amazing job showing how they get value out of Nansen. And Mev Collector, I think, had 30 followers as well when I started following him. And he did this insanely good thread on how he went from like 11 ETH to 80 ETH in a few days or something like that. And now he has like more than 5,000 followers on Twitter, just like 2-3 weeks later. So clearly people engage with his content. So if you want to get followers fast on Twitter, you should just post some content on how to use it. That's what people do.
Yeah,
that's how I grew my account. I have like 40,000 followers, and it's basically what I've done.
The most blatant shill.
It's literally true. It's backed by evidence.
Sure. One thing we should do probably is curate a little list of people who are high quality follows for Nansen content.
Yeah.
On Twitter, yeah. All right. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and pengoos and frogs and whatever your avatar apes, punks. Thank you all for joining us today. We have a lot of fun making these, doing these sessions. It's always fun to hop on these recordings. So if you have any feedback for us as we continue to evolve this format, let us know. We're open to suggestions. And if we missed any questions that you had in the chat, feel free to hop into our Discord. As Alex mentioned, nansen.ai/Discord, and feel free to strike up a conversation there. We'd be happy to have you in our community. So see you guys next Wednesday. And in the meantime, enjoy the markets, enjoy your NFTs, and thank you again.
Bye-bye.